Time to talk to one of my favorite economists, Nedbank's chief economist, Dykes, who is also the recipient of the Economist of the Year award on 2 occasions. That's from Thomson Reuters, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, yes.
Congratulations.
Oh, well, thanks.
See what they say about good company. But perfect. Maybe let's pick up on the view of the South African economy. We just heard our conversation with Leslie Marstorp a moment ago. And I asked him how relevant is South Africa, not only in the global scheme of things, but when it comes to BRICS. I take it you slightly worried because we're not as great as India and maybe Russia, but at least we're not as bad as Brazil at the moment.
Yeah, look, Brazil's going through a very tough stage, and there are a number of similarities between Brazil and South Africa. Power shortages, governments that are too micromanaging and too interventionist, I would actually say. So, and very similar sort of rates of savings. So structurally, there are quite a few sort of parallels between those two economies. But Russia's also not doing well. I mean, Russia's in all sorts of trouble at the moment, obviously with energy prices down and the geopolitical problems with Ukraine and so forth. So it's really, a two-country show at the moment. That's China and India, which and China has also got some question marks.
Let's touch on some of the global influencing factors. It's the US, it's Greece and Europe as well as China. But you recently took a trip to the US where things do certainly look upbeat at the moment. We see it in some of the economic data indicators, and even with Janet Yellen mentioning yesterday that, look, interest rates will go up. So everyone's very impatient to see September come by. Yeah,
no, look, I must admit, I come back with a view that they will raise in September. They're almost certainly going to raise in September. And before going, I would have actually based that on them trying to prevent sort of financial problems in the markets. You know, obviously low interest rates for a long period of time creates all sorts of distortions. But the view that I kind of absorbed from my colleagues, and as well as we had some interaction with Fed officials, was that they do feel that they're nearing full employment and that they do need to tighten on normal monetary policy grounds. So that was quite interesting to me, and I think, as I say, I think September now looks almost like a certainty.
That's
in
good.
My book.
That's that's good for the US. But should we as South Africans be concerned because their currency implications? Our local MPC might have to follow and make a move.
Look, it is weird in a certain way, because if you look at previous interest rate cycles, US interest rates typically don't really impact that much on South Africa in the way that you would automatically think that they would. But there's no doubt that the markets are so focused on the first move and the direction and pace of the interest rate moves in the States, that any signal from the Fed is going to be interpreted locally and will have some impact on our markets, as well as, of course, on the rand. My view is that the MPC, our MPC, should certainly not be thinking of being preemptive ahead of that move, because basically by the time we get to September, people will have forgotten that South Africa had raised interest rates, and then you'll just be starting off a higher base. So complete waste of time. You actually want to do what the Australians typically do, which is keep rates as low as possible for as long as possible. And when you have to move, people say, "Oh, look how much they moved," you know, and they're very limited damaging factors to your consumers as well as the markets. So, in my book, the MPC should certainly keep the powder dry. All the numbers that are coming out, credit, retail sales, you know, GDP itself, suggests that the economy is still pretty much in the doldrums. We're constrained by all sorts of factors. We've also had the fact that Eskom now didn't get its tariff increases, which was the big factor at the last MPC, which so that that was the big scare factor, and that's sort of gone away, at least for the moment. So I don't think there's we've had the oil price pulling back, so I think there's good enough reason to actually hold. And as I say, if you're doing it to be preemptive on the US, it's not going to help. As a matter of fact, it's going to hurt.
And if the MPC does hold, that doesn't necessarily mean that our GDP numbers might reach 2% at the end of the year, could they?
No, look, I think I think that on average we'll probably have about 2% growth for the year as a whole. There will be some sort of technical bounce back. Obviously, remember in the base for last year, we still had all that strike action which took place, and in the platinum sector and in the motor vehicle sector and so forth. So those were big drag factors during the course of last year. But then, of course, we didn't have quite the electricity constraint that we're undergoing at the moment, and that obviously the last couple of weeks have actually been quite damaging once again. We thought that we were going to escape a little bit, and it appears not.
Unfortunately. Dennis, unfortunately we've run out of time, but thank you so much. Always good speaking to you, and congratulations once again on winning that award.
Well, that's a bit of historical.
Oh yes, it is historical, but we like to deal with winners, so that can never be a bad thing here on the channel. Thank you so much. That was Nedbank's Chief Economist, Dennis Dykes.